Everyone ready? Well, good morning everyone, and wanted to start off firstly with obviously some tragic news. Overnight we've lost a couple of Queenslanders in floodwaters. Two people have lost their lives, a man at Stones Corner and one of our own, an SES volunteer. It's often said that those that wear the SES uniform are orange angels. They put others ahead of themselves. They go into harm's way to save others. And this person was doing that this last. We pay tribute to their service and their life, and of course pass condolences onto family, friends, colleagues and the broader Queensland community. There's been a number of people who have lost their life in this serious weather event today. We encourage everyone to listen to the warnings, to make sensible decisions about being out and about. But of course we also extend condolences to the family and friends of everyone who have been so tragically impacted by this event today. The event is not over though, and for many parts of southeast Queensland, this is the biggest flooding event that they will see for a decade. In some parts of Queensland, southeast Queensland, this is some parts of southeast Queensland, this is the biggest event that they will see in a number of decades. And the rain has not stopped. In fact, there are some parts where it is intensifying, and the impact of that on community could be significant. We already have water catchments which are saturated, which could of course lead to flash flooding and further increases in flooding. There are a number of locations where there are major flood warnings, and we'll hear from the Bureau and others around what people need to be aware of. Can I encourage everyone to exercise extra caution today and tomorrow as we get through this weather event? I need everyone out there to be making sensible decisions, considering where and when they go and planning their journey. Do not drive into floodwaters. Make sure you check on your neighbours and your mates to make sure they're okay too. Please listen to all the warnings and keep informed. Our emergency services, police and other essential workers are out and about doing their bit to keep the community safe. Now I'm asking everyone in southeast Queensland to do their bit to keep themselves and others that they know safe as well. We've got a number of people here to speak. We'll hear firstly from the Bureau, then from the State Disaster Coordinator, the Fire Commissioner and the Police Commissioner, and then happy to take some questions about the weather.
Good morning. So it's clear that we're in the middle of what could be a season-defining rain event for southeast Queensland. Areas of heavy rain are continuing across the southeast, and it's likely this activity is now going to continue into Sunday, with the system now moving slower than initially expected. Locally intense falls are continuing around southeast Queensland, with the main focus currently around the Bribie Island and Moreton Bay Regional Council area. Since many catchments are now saturated, and in combination with this rainfall, there is now going to be an increased risk of dangerous and life-threatening flash flooding, and even the potential for localised landslides during the course of this event, given how wet a lot of these catchments are. Numerous major flood warnings are now current across southeast Queensland, and the number and the severity of these flood warnings is only going to increase over the course of this weekend and into early next week, with further rainfall continued. A flood watch also continues for a lot of the remaining catchments across southeast Queensland while this event still is unfolding. Damaging wind gusts also remain possible around the coastline and adjacent inland areas during the course of today and into the course of tomorrow, which of course, in combination with some of these saturated catchments and grounds, may just lead to any shallow-rooted trees falling over. Stepping into more detail into our current flood warnings, we have a major flood warning that's going for parts of the Brisbane River. Significant flash flooding has largely peaked in the Lockyer Valley that occurred last night, but with further forecast rainfall, you can't discount further rapid rises throughout the Lockyer Valley during the course of today and into tomorrow. Major flooding is being recorded in the Brisbane River at Ipswich, and minor flood warnings are expected at the Brisbane City Gauge on the high tide over the course of the weekend. Of course, it's a bit early to tell with further rainfall about where the gauge may go to over the coming days, but we'll definitely keep you updated on this as the event unfolds. A major flood warning is also current for the Mary River with major flood levels already being recorded at Gympie. These flood levels already exceeded the events that happened in 2011 and 2013, showing how significant this event is going to be for some places, and in particular for Gympie, which may actually exceed the last known flood event back in 1999. So this is going to exceed an event that hasn't happened in at least 20 to 25 years. Major flooding is also now expected at Maryborough, where the major flood level may peak during the course of Sunday and may actually exceed the peak that was observed earlier this year in January of 2022. We now also have a major flood warning that's going for the Malula, Noosa and Muruchi rivers, and this is expected, given the forecast rain and what has been happening during the course of this morning. We've seen a further 100 to 150 millimetres occur around the Sunshine Coast over the course of this morning. This has been in addition to 200 to 300 millimetre totals that happened during the course of overnight and late yesterday. This is now shaping up to be a very significant rainfall event for the Sunshine Coast area, and one that may not have been seen in the area since at least 1992. That's nearly 30 years since the last time we saw an event of this scale for the Sunshine Coast and for those catchments around the Malula, Noosa and Muruchi rivers. Finally, the last major flood warning that we have currently at the moment is the Logan River, where Bow Desert may reach the major flood level during the course of Saturday morning. Of course, these are just the major flood warnings we have. We also have a range of minor to moderate flood warnings across southeast Queensland right now. And as I mentioned, with further rainfall expected, we can now expect the number of these warnings and the severity of these warnings to increase during the course of this event and while this rainfall is still happening. To close off, I also just want to note some of the most significant totals we've had during the course of this event, just to give you a gravity of the scale of the rainfall they're experiencing during this week. In the 21 hours to 6 a.m. this morning, we had 618 millimetres at Mount Glorious near Brisbane. That's been in addition to another 405 millimetres that happened in the 7 days up until Friday morning. At Pomona, around the Sunshine Coast hinterland, we had 535 millimetres in the 21 hours to 6 a.m. this morning. Again, this was in addition to 786 millimetres that they had in the 24 hours leading up to 9 a.m. Friday morning. Wivenhoe Dam also recorded 302 millimetres. Again, that was in addition to a further 50 millimetres they had leading into Friday morning. And for Gatton, they had 278 millimetres in the 21 hours leading up to 6 a.m. this morning. Typically, on average, during February, they only receive about 99 to 100 millimetres. For Brisbane City, we've seen 206 millimetres in the 21 hours to 6 a.m. this morning. And again, for Brisbane, usually in February, we see an average of about 150 millimetres. So essentially, we've seen a month's worth of rainfall fall in one day for just Brisbane alone, let alone all the other catchments that have seen well beyond what is usually their February average. I'll otherwise now pass on to the State Disaster Coordinator to give an update.
Thank you, David. Good morning. Could I just start with passing on condolences to our SES colleagues, family and their workmates for their tragic loss. That's the kind of thing we don't want to wake up to hearing what's happened in these types of events. Unfortunately for us, that brings to us 4 total deaths that we have lost in this event, and that was 2 overnight. So this is a very serious event. We currently have 2 missing persons that we are undertaking searches for, and they are in the Gomborian area near Gympie and at Yandina. And obviously those searches are ongoing. In the last 24 hours, we've had 11 emergency alerts, and can I just reinforce that this had spread from Maryborough down to our border, including in the Brisbane area and areas near that. So this event continues to unfold. It's extremely important that everyone stays connected and hears these messages when they go out. It is a dangerous environment out there. I'm sure Commissioner Leach will talk shortly about the number of rescues that we've seen since we last briefed you, and that continues to happen. In many instances, people are still making poor choices about, 1, being out and about in this type of weather, and then 2, what they actually do when they're out there. So remember, if it's flooded, forget it. It will be dangerous for some time yet. We've currently got evacuation centres operating from in areas including Moreton, Sunshine Coast, Ipswich, Maryborough and Gympie, and we have a total of 253 persons in those evacuation centres as of 8:30 this morning, with most of them in the Gympie area. We have multiple road closures. I won't go into those, other than there are major roads, including the Bruce, that have been repeatedly cut. Please check if you have to go out, and you absolutely have to go out. Please check before you go out and check online, because as I said, these conditions can rapidly change and they're quite dangerous. Power outages, there's 7,737 across the southeast corner, with 2,707 of those in the Gympie area. We are really focused on the Gympie area in particular at the moment. We're seeing very high levels in the river system there, so planning is very detailed with the local disaster management group and the district disaster management group. One, on keeping our community safe in that area, and two, dealing with the impact on both businesses and residents in that area. We won't know the full extent of this until we see how high the river actually gets, and that will continue to unfold as the day goes forward. We're monitoring our supply right across the southeast corner and making sure that that is working as well as it can be. And can I finish off by saying just thank you to the Australian Defence Force again assisting us overnight with some of the operations that we have to have, and they are here and ready to be used by us should we need to as the day goes on. I'm going to finish off by saying that we've met this morning with all of our government agencies to run through all of the response that's currently happening. It is an incredibly difficult and complex operating environment. We're going quite well considering the circumstances we're faced with, but that's because our community is doing the right thing. So the message is still there for our community. It's a dangerous day ahead of us in some areas. It will change rapidly. If it's flooded, forget it. Do the right thing and stay out of these conditions. Thank you.
Good morning. It's a very sad day for Queensland Fire and Emergency Services, and in particular our State Emergency Service, with the loss of one of our own overnight. Last night, a crew of 4 from the State Emergency Service were responding to a request for assistance to a family whose home was being inundated by floodwaters. The SES vehicle in which they were travelling was swept off the road into floodwaters. 3 of our members were rescued. One of those members is deceased. So we pass on our condolences to family, friends and loved ones. We'll continue to support the family as best we can in coming days and weeks, and we'll continue to support the whole of the State Emergency Service family. But we have to get on with our current business. We've responded to over 1,800 requests for assistance by the SES in the last 24 hours, and our swiftwater rescue technicians have responded to over 132 swiftwater rescues in the last 24 hours. It's extremely dangerous out there in southeast Queensland at the moment. In the last couple of hours, a very dangerous thunderstorm has passed over the Sunshine Coast and Noosa. An emergency alert has been issued for that area. 11 emergency alerts have been issued overnight for various parts of southeast Queensland. Our catchments are completely saturated, our rivers are rising, we have flash flooding. Now is not the time to be out and about in southeast Queensland if you don't have to be. We'll continue to do what we can, but you've got to play your part in taking your own safety seriously. So we'll continue to respond, provide the support that we can to all of our services, but please, if you don't have to be out and about, stay home. And remember, if you do have to travel around southeast Queensland, if it's flooded, forget it. Back it up and find an alternate route. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is just reiterating the message that has been spoken about a number of times here already this morning. First of all, I just want to say, again, that has been mentioned, our thoughts are with all those that have passed away and their families in recent days, and that has been 4 caught up in the floodwaters. Particularly to the SES, that unit and all of SES who were just going about their business to try and help others in what is currently dangerous circumstances. I cannot overemphasise, and I think it has been mentioned a number of times today, how dangerous some of the conditions are currently in the southeast, and this will continue over the next few days. The intense rainfall is already falling on areas that are heavily impacted and saturated. So as a result, those dangerous levels increase and flash flooding and more flooding will increase. So can I please ask all of the members of the public that if you don't have to go out, please don't. Stay off the roads. But more importantly, listen to authorities. Listen to authorities because you might have to act very, very quickly. And lastly, as always, if it's flooded, can you please forget it? Because as has been indicated, we have already lost 4 lives and we don't want to lose any more over the next few days. Thank you. Minister?
Any questions from anyone?
Who for? on the situation in Grantham, do you know if the rescues there were by helicopter or boats, or has the Defence Force been helping out there?
Greg or Steve?
Last night, Rescue 500 was tasked to assist with a rescue in the Grantham area, but due to the weather conditions and the heavy rainfall at the time, the aircraft was unable to complete the mission. Most of the rescues out there are being conducted by swiftwater rescue technicians, SES floodboat crews, and some people self-evacuating from out there. The weather conditions are continued to deteriorate with heavy rainfall today. We have been in contact with the Australian Defence Force through our local DAC arrangements, our disaster assistance arrangements with the Defence Force. There are 2 rotary wing helicopters available for use, and we'll call on them if or when we need them.
Just in relation to that, I don't know who the best person to ask this on is, but the other fatality at Camp Hill, is there any other details we can get in there?
One for Steve.
What I can say is this person's been found in that area. It is under investigation. There's no suspicious circumstances at all. The indications are this person's got caught up in floodwater. We'll have to run our investigation to find out, backtrack this person's movements and see what's happened. So.
And is police taking action at the moment against people who are going into floodwaters, and are you seeing that a lot at the moment?
Look, absolutely. People need to remember that in some ways, you know, like that's the least of our concerns. You know, if people do the wrong thing deliberately, which we still see happening, ignoring signs, driving into water and getting themselves in trouble, but not only putting themselves at risk, but putting at risk those that have to go and rescue them. And as we've seen, one of our colleagues has lost their life trying to help people. People get put at risk in these conditions by being out there trying to help them. So, of course, if we get the opportunity to take action and enforcement action, we will. We will follow up on all these sorts of instances, investigate them and take enforcement action, including fine those people where appropriate.
Maybe a question to the minister. Just on the dam levels, should people downstream be worried at all about dam releases at the moment?
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Jack. And obviously we're closely monitoring the dam situation. We've got the engineers as well as the hydrologists looking very closely at this. As people may be aware, there was a small release from Ivanhoe yesterday. That release has stopped and there's no planned release today, but we are monitoring it very closely, and obviously people need to continue to keep themselves informed about future or potential dam releases. But at this stage, we're, as I said, closely monitoring the situation. In Ivanhoe, for instance, it's at about 90.9% of the drinking water capacity. Let me emphasise that, the drinking water capacity, because we still have significant flood water capacity in Ivanhoe as well. But the hydrologists and the Bureau of Meteorology and the engineers will keep a close eye on this.
What type of levels, have they got any forecasts on the types of levels they're expecting over the next few days?
Look, we're going to have a closer look at it. Well, we're continuing to have a very close look at it, and we'll provide some more information later on today about it. But there's no planned releases today.
And what would you say to people? Is the work still to come for a lot of people?
Well, the Bureau has indicated that there's aspects where things are intensifying today. The catchments are obviously very saturated. We've got forecasts of rain for today and tomorrow, and perhaps even for a few days beyond that too. So people need to be really aware of their circumstances, continue to listen to the authorities and make very sensible decisions about what they're doing. Exercise extreme caution at the moment because there are life-threatening scenarios playing out, and people need to be very careful.
I've just got a question for you, sorry. With that system, and you mentioned that it's moving slower than you expected. Can you just sort of talk us through, I guess, what it will be doing today?
Yeah, so in regards to the weather system that's causing this heavy to intense rainfall event, it's essentially slowly moving across the southeastern interior of Queensland, so just inland of the coastline, and it's expected to intensify during today. As noted, it has been moving slower than initially expected, and as a result, that's why we're seeing this increase in rainfall around the southeast today, and we'll see further risk into the course of Sunday. The system is expected to gradually move southwards during the next 24 hours and should hopefully move towards our border areas during the course of Sunday. Of course, does that mean that that's the end of the rainfall risk? It will shift it southwards during the course of tomorrow, but of course that brings parts of northeast New South Wales, who we've got to be mindful of, have also experienced this rainfall event as well and could lead to increase in their flood levels as well during the next couple of days.
So a reprieve probably not until mid next week.
In terms of a reprieve or any de-escalation of this weather event, all the model indications show that it may persist, it will likely persist into Sunday, and there could be a reduction in the weather as we step into Monday. Most likely by Tuesday we should see a very much an easing of conditions, but yeah, most models continue this event into at least Sunday at least, and it's a wait and see because yeah, this weather system's definitely kept us on our toes, but one thing we could be mindful of, we just know for the next 24 hours we're in a high flood risk with the potential for a lot of flooding around the southeast, and it's not just going to stop tomorrow. Once this weather system moves on, these floodwaters are going to continue around the southeast. They're going to continue moving downstream, and they will continue to impact a lot of our communities over the next few days, weeks, and of course for a lot of people it will impact them for the rest of their lives as well, because it's such a significant rainfall event we're facing around the southeast at the moment.
And how does this event at the moment, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, compare to what we saw in 2011 in the lead up to those floods there?
Yeah, I guess in comparisons to 2011, every location's different around the southeast. There are some that we've seen some locations, such as Gympie. They've already exceeded their 2011 flood peak, their 2013 flood peak. And we're talking about a flood that's comparable, or if not, greater than one that happened in 1999. For places like the Sunshine Coast, again, we're talking about floods that are comparable to something that happened in 1992, beyond what happened in 2011. And again, all the flooding that happened across the Lockyer Valley as of yesterday, again, very similar. Though some of the peaks were just shy of what happened back in 2011, still a lot of flash flooding happened across the area during the course of yesterday. So every location is different, but some are showing they've been greater than 2011.
Do we have a lot of people awaiting rescue at the moment?
We're continuing to receive requests for assistance as we speak. As the Bureau said, it's a very dynamic situation out there at the moment. There are storm cells that are forming. All of the catchments are wet. We've got a lot of water on the ground, a lot of flash flooding occurring. And wherever these storm cells move, we invariably receive requests for assistance from the community. That's all within our capacity to respond to at the moment, and we'll continue to respond to those requests as we receive them.
Can I please ask the Commissioner a question very briefly on a separate,
Yes.
just in relation to that incident at that McDonald's restaurant last night. Was that use of force justified in your opinion?
So I just want to make some comments about that first. So at 4:30 p.m. yesterday, police responded to what was multiple calls from the public in relation to a male person threatening staff at McDonald's at Marsden with a knife. Police attended, and this male person was threatening a female employee, and police were called on this person numerous times to put down the knife, but refused. And when that person lunged at the police, he was shot a number of times. Unfortunately, he did succumb to his injuries. A full investigation has commenced, obviously, of that incident by ethical standards and will be overseen by the CCC. However, if you have the training like I have, and all police officers, knives are just as dangerous as guns, if not more so. They can be removed very, very quickly and acted with in milliseconds, and that's what took place last night.
Was that employee being held hostage at knife point?
The employee was being held at knife point, and obviously this was the biggest concern. When police arrived, they weren't aware fully of what the circumstances were, whether the people, these two knew each other. However, in that situation, I understand there is YouTube footage out there already, but certainly being held by the offender and called upon, as I said, numerous times to put down the knife. And when he came at police, obviously police took action.
There's no indication as to what sparked this?
We don't know what sparked this incident, and that's part of the investigation, so that will be ongoing over the next couple of days, obviously. Thank you, everyone.
So we've got time for the price of one today, too. I'll have Charlie here give you a COVID update. There's nothing